Vancouver almost did it again. Improbably. Alex Ovechkin's got something cooking, and the Sabres, this season's Jekyll and Hyde. All that and more coming up on Locked On NHL Game Night.
When that final horn sounds, you know it's time for Locked On NHL Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. Prepare to experience game day reactions like never before. Only on Locked On NHL Game Night. Your team every day.
Hey, hockey fans, welcome to Locked On NHL Game Night, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Good morning if it's a certain coast, or good evening if it's the West Coast, Eddie's Coast. Now the number one sports podcast network in the world. Thanks for joining us, your teams every day on Locked On. Thanks for making Locked On NHL Game Night your place to get a recap of all the night's action, whether it's one game, 16, or anything in between. That's what we're here for, is to help you break it all down. We're available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com. Win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. I'm Alex Wiederspiel. I write about hockey for Yardbarker, and I hang out here on Locked On NHL Game Night with Eddie Garcia, the host of Locked On LA Kings. Here on Game Night, you can get all of the goals, saves, big moments, and stories from the night in the NHL with a big assist from our Locked On local experts. Another fantastic night in the league. Some really, really good games. Lots of goals tonight, and we had some great games both on the East Coast and on the West Coast, Eddie. Wonderful, wonderful nightcap, which we will get to, of course. But there were great games up and down the slate.
Yeah, no doubt. A little bit of everything across the board. And as you mentioned, capped off with quite a thrilling win out here in Southern California.
No kidding. And I want to start, though, as far away from SoCal as possible. I want to start in Florida, where the Vancouver Canucks had been hanging around the Sunshine State and had one of the strangest victories I had seen against Tampa. They didn't really play that well through the first 40 minutes of that game. Came out gangbusters in the third period. I have to correct myself from yesterday's show. I said they shot 35%. It was actually 29%. I'm sorry, guys. I'm not a math guy. That's why I went into broadcasting, because I don't know how to do basic math. Tonight they actually shot closer to 35%, by the way. So they almost did it again. This was a weird one. And after 4 assists from Quinn Hughes last night, they got 3 more from him tonight. They scored 3 unanswered to tie what was at one point a 5-2 Florida lead and make it 5-5. This was a game that felt more like basketball tonight, Eddie, where we had 2 goals to start for Vancouver. Then Florida scored 5 straight. Then Vancouver scored 3 straight, and then Florida scored the last 3. And yeah, you guys didn't miscount on that one. I only miscount. And Eddie, it's 8-5, the final in this one. 1 empty netter to boot, but goals up and down the lineup. A 3-assist night for Sam Reinhart, the enigmatic EP40 for Vancouver, threw in a couple of goals as well. Maybe he's starting to cook a little bit, but let me throw out some numbers at you here, Eddie. The Canucks have scored 10 goals on their last 32 shots, which is 30+%. And they only won 1 of those 2 games. That is a concern for me. Florida gets the win.
Yeah, and you mentioned like basketball. It was a game of runs, and Florida had the last run. Once it was tied 5-5, and you're wondering, where is this going to go? The 2-time defending champs showed where it was going to go by slamming the door. Seth Jones had a couple of goals, including one on the power play there in the third period as part of those final 3 goals. And then Marchand gets his 13th into the empty net to seal the deal. Tough night for Yuri Patera, the man in net for the Vancouver Canucks. Saw 40 shots on goal in his debut with the team, allowing 7 goals. So he saw a lot of rubber coming his way. Even had a couple of really good saves as well in the mix there. But in the end, Florida was too tough to handle. So no epic third period in this one for Vancouver as they had the night before in Tampa.
Let's give Locked On Florida Panthers Armando Velez the final word on this one.
Offense, this Panthers Canucks game was for you, but the Panthers came out victorious by a final score of 8-5. from Sunrise. And the Panthers controlled play for the majority of this as they were facing a third goaltender in Yuri Patera. The Canucks were without Connor Garland, but the Panthers still were cranking it up and in the offensive zone. And they were even down 2-0 on 2 quick goals by the Vancouver Canucks, but they responded right before the intermission and continued it on in the second period, scoring 5 unanswered goals. And even in the third period, the Vancouver Canucks were able to score and tie the game. The Panthers did not take their foot off the gas. They had 16 different point getters on the game, a franchise record, which also included Sergei Bobrovsky, and only one player with a multi-goal game in Seth Jones, both of them coming on the power play. We're going to break all this down and more on Tuesday's edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, your team every day.
You know, at one point, by the way, just real quick final note on this. At one point, Vancouver had scored 8 consecutive goals in the state of Florida. Didn't wind up getting the win. 6 straight last night, 2 straight to start tonight. Let's move over to Buffalo, where, this might have been Buffalo's best performance of the season. A 5-1 win. Noah Ostlund scores twice. And for the second game in a row, Buffalo owns the third period. They owned it possession-wise. They scored a bunch. And I'm starting to think, Eddie, that our buddy Nick Sararis, who I would say at times I've described as a right little ray of sunshine with the way he discusses Edmonton, I think he might actually have a point about some of what's been going on with the Edmonton Oilers. Should be music to your ears. So the Sabres follow up a really impressive comeback win over Detroit to blow out the Oilers. I've got some Edmonton numbers that should concern everybody. So the Oilers, they're 2-2 on this 7-game road trip so far. 3 more to go. That's not the concern. They have not won a game in regulation since October 28th. They have won only 4 games in regulation in 21 games, the worst mark in the NHL. Only 4 other teams have 4 regulation wins. They've all played fewer games than Edmonton, and all 4 of them are teams that I think we probably would have said wouldn't have sniffed a playoff spot come preseason. Philadelphia, San Jose, Nashville, and Calgary. That is some inauspicious company tonight for the Edmonton Oilers after this blowout loss.
Yeah, and the Oilers are the big picture story here, and I'll save some thoughts about them for a little bit later on. But they get a great win over Carolina in overtime on Saturday, and you're thinking, okay, maybe that's a win they build off of. Zach Hyman has come back in the lineup. They're encouraged by that. And then they follow it up with this effort. And granted, historically, for whatever reason, they don't play well in Buffalo. They've lost 5 of their last 6 trips there. But this effort overall was not very inspiring. Connor McDavid, no points. He's a -2. That, he can't be like that, unfortunately for him, the way the Oilers are playing right now. But I'll flip it a little bit, though, for Buffalo and Noah Ostlund. And he's a guy I didn't know much about. Thought he showed some great skills in this with his 2 goals, 16th overall pick in 2022. And his power play goal in the first period was gorgeous. His back is to the net. He gets the puck. He spins around and goes forehand to backhand in one motion and tucks it into the net. So there's a young player that Buffalo is hoping to be part of the solution going forward. Real nice game for him. And then in net, they had a rookie goalie, Colton Ellis, who had 1 goal on 33 shots. So at some point you wonder, right? We see all these young guys stepping up in San Jose and Anaheim and things like that. You're like, didn't Buffalo acquire all these picks? Where are they at, and when are they going to show up? Well, maybe Noah Ostlund is one of them. Maybe Colton Ellis is another.
Yeah, unfortunately for them, JJ Peterka is one of them. He plays for a different team now. That said, I want to give the final word on this one to Nick Sararis of Locked On Edmonton Oilers. I think he's got some thoughts on this one.
The Edmonton Oilers failed to show much of a competent hockey team, falling 5-1 to the Buffalo Sabres on a night where they struggled to get anything going offensively, in particular of the high danger variety. Once again, the Oilers struggled to get anything resembling the once high-powered offense we have come to expect from this organization going. The high danger chances were minimal. Jack Roslovic scored the Oilers' singular goal in this game off of the rush from a nice feed from Leon Draisaitl, but beyond that, the Oilers couldn't get the puck down low. They couldn't get the puck between the circles and settled for a lot of low danger, low quality offense in what is becoming a recurring theme. The Oilers are a team predicated on transition play, getting the puck quickly up the ice, and tonight the Sabres put on a masterclass in how to attack off of the counter. And then if that counter attack wasn't there, they were able to wear the Oilers down, in particular the 2 goals in the second period to help them build their lead out. And man, sitting here in a week where the Oilers are going to play 4 games in 6 days, this is not a great feeling coming off of a game that against a Buffalo team who is sitting in last place in the Eastern Conference needed to be a win.
One quick note on that, just before we get over to the next game. I heard what he was saying about the issue creating chances. I actually did some research on that because I just thought it couldn't possibly be this big of an issue. Edmonton is 31st in the NHL at creating high danger chances per 60 minutes at 5-on-5. 31st. The teams they are around are not very good. The Seattles of the world, well, the Chicagos of the world, they're playing well. They're getting lights out goaltending. But point being, that's very un-Edmonton-like. So I'd like to see how it compares to where they've been in the past, but that's a concern. Carolina and Boston. You know, it was a concern tonight how shorthanded the Boston Bruins were in this one, and Carolina completely stifles them, Eddie. They take a 3-0 lead deep into this one. Ultimately, it was a late Riley Tuft goal that broke up the shutout with 10 seconds left. But the story of the night, Peter Kochetkov absolutely stifles the Boston Bruins when they did get opportunities. I mean, it was a real dual effort. Carolina really limited what Boston did. They only had 3 high-danger 5-on-5 chances in 46 minutes in this one. For context, if Boston did that over the course of a season, that would be worse than what Edmonton has done so far this year. So 32nd, and worse than what Seattle has done this year. So everything working for Carolina tonight. You just have that one little blip at the end.
Yeah, and we talked about, the win for Edmonton over Carolina. Well, the Hurricanes come back with a great effort to win this one on the road in Boston, where the Bruins have at times looked very good this year. Jordan Staal had a great one-handed push shot goal to start this thing off. He's a big guy using his size down low, and he's a left shot, and he pushed it in with his right hand because he was tied up with a defender and just muscled it in the net. That's, a veteran guy like that knows how to score those kind of goals. That's why he's been around so long. But yeah, Pyotr Kochetkov probably should have had a shutout in this one, 10 seconds away from getting the shutout. But I'm going to talk more a little bit about him, but he's looking very good for the Hurricanes, and they're tied with New Jersey right now for most points in the East and first in the Metro.
Would we get fireworks between two of the youngest, most explosive teams in hockey? Turns out we would. It just took a little while to get there. And is Alex Ovechkin finally starting to find his groove? What do we think at this point of Montreal and Columbus? We'll answer most of those questions coming up here in just a moment on Locked On NHL Game Night. But first, of course, our program brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. Hockey season is back in full swing, and nothing beats being in the arena for these opening games. Now, let's be real, getting tickets can be a headache sometimes between waiting in queues or surprise fees. That's my particular bugaboo. Prices that jump right before checkout. Don't love that either. It's easy to get frustrated when all you want to do is cheer on your team. That's where Game Time comes in, the app that gives fans the advantage. It's your ultimate life hack for scoring amazing NHL tickets, fast, easy, and stress-free. I love that what you see is what you pay. No hidden fees at checkout. It's probably the most important thing for me. When I'm going to a game, I'm already traveling far because I don't live in the hotbed of hockey in West Virginia. So I got to travel up to Pittsburgh. I got to travel up to Columbus. You start adding up parking and gas and everything else and food and getting a dog sitter, especially if I'm going to Columbus. I just want as cheap tickets as I can find. So you can find some tickets for under $25. Take the guesswork out of buying NHL tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. All right, so I want to start in SoCal, where Anaheim picks up an overtime win over Utah. This was a game that at times felt like Utah was maybe the more polished team, but Anaheim's skill is just so overwhelming at times that they can really make something out of nothing. Their first goal scored by Jackson Lacombe, that was his first of the season. Shockingly, I thought was a high skill play. And it's almost like when a defensive back gets just absolutely obliterated in man coverage in football, that type of play where you're going pass from the below the goal line to the slot, low slot, and one timing it. Like, it's the equivalent of a deep bomb in the NFL, and the defensive back is going up against Jamar Chase. Like, just no chance there. So that's a great first goal. Utah would kind of battle back. Logan Cooley scored. But I thought the most interesting part of this one were some of the places where Utah missed out on opportunities, Eddie. Logan Cooley had a chance to ice this thing late, right? He was in tight. He made a high skill play to get the puck. I think he was going from backhand to forehand, and he basically had a wide open net, and he takes a hit from Olen Zellweger, who's not exactly known as a huge physical guy, young, skilled defenseman, takes a huge hit in the crease. Zellweger separates him from the puck, and keep a note of that because of what would happen later. Another moment, though, with the net empty, Kevin Stenlund, unable to hold the zone for Utah to get a shot off. There's an offside, and that would lead directly to a goal scored with 4 seconds left for the Anaheim Ducks to tie this thing, send it to overtime, where Olen Zellweger would get the winner against a wildly out of position Karel Vejmelka. So Lucas Dostal wins the battle of the Czech goaltenders. I saw a tweet earlier tonight that said something like this might have been the first game in NHL history with 4 Czech goaltenders, starter and backup on each side. Anaheim gets the win.
Yeah, I was talking the other night about Matthew Schaefer and how his young exuberance is so infectious. And I think that the Islanders feed off that. The Ducks have a group of Matthew Schaefers. They've got Beckett Seneca, who's 19 years old. They've got Jackson Lacombe, who's 24. Pavel Minchikov is 21. You've got, some of the other players like Leo Carlson. These are all really young, exciting. Cutter Gauthier. I mean, they've got a slew of these young guys that are infectiously entertaining and high-end talent. And we saw it on display in the overtime where Beckett Seneca makes the great extra pass, and Karel Vejmelka thought for in the world he was going to shoot it, and he came way out of his net. It was really aggressive, and then Zellweger gets the pass, and he basically puts it into an empty net. Much to the dismay of Vejmelka, who smashed his stick over the crossbar. So, this Ducks team is an interesting mix because when you look at the game tying goal with the goalie pulled in the final seconds, it was a couple of the older guys who were really the catalysts on that one. Chris Kreider is in the net, as you well know, being a Rangers fan, loves to live there, and his presence creates a loose puck, and Troy Terry is there to put it home and tie it up and give the younger guys a opportunity to do their thing in overtime. So it's a really interesting mix of young and old in Anaheim. And right now the Ducks are in first place, the Pacific Division. They moved 1 point up on LA.
Let's give Kyle Carr the final word from Locked On Anaheim Ducks.
What a comeback roller coaster ending to this game for the Ducks against the Utah Mammoth. Jackson Lacombe gets his first goal of the season to get the game started, and then the Ducks squander their lead, giving up a 2-1 deficit almost the entire game after the second period, and then the Ducks score. Troy Terry getting one in 4 seconds before the buzzer, and then in overtime, finally the Ducks get possession of the puck after the Utah Mammoth basically carried it the entire overtime, and a beautiful play by Alex Killorn, and then Beckett Seneca and Olen Zellweger with the hands gets it into nearly an empty net as Vejmelka was way out of position. So great win for Anaheim after a 3-game skid. Looked like it was over, but they come back in OT. Fly together.
All right.
Kyle was so excited about that game, if you're watching on YouTube, that his hair was standing on end.
I love it. I love it. It's great. They have a reason to be excited in Anaheim after a very, very long playoff drought. They might be headed back. Let's head out to our nation's capital, where one of the best, I think the second best road team in the league, the Los Angeles Kings, couldn't quite get the job done tonight. Eddie, I know you were watching this one closely. Good night for Charlie Lindgren for the Capitals. Probably his best performance of the season, dating back to when the Caps beat the Rangers. I mean, these are probably his only 2 actual good performances this season. He's been really not very good otherwise. 2-1 win for Washington. This is just the 4th loss for the Kings on the road this season in 13 games.
Yeah, it also snapped their 4-game winning streak, which was all on the road at that point. This was a much more wide open game than I would have thought. I thought the final score in this one could have been closer to 5-4 or 4-3. I thought both goaltenders played very well, but both teams had a lot of high quality chances in this one. I was surprised how well Charlie Lindgren played. I will be honest, as a Kings fan, when I saw he was starting, I was feeling pretty good about our chances to extend that winning streak to 5 in a row. But no, he played a great game. I agree with you. If it wasn't his best game, it was certainly right there. I think it probably was his best game of the year. Uncharacteristically for LA, a couple of blown assignments defensively led directly to goals. Matt Roy, a defenseman, was all alone in front of the net for his first goal of the year. A total breakdown there. You want to use a football analogy, a blown coverage there. And then Alexander Ovechkin, how do you let him be alone in front of the net? He scores, I think it was number 903. And he ends up with the game winner. And I heard them say on the broadcast, it was the 139th game-winning goal of his career, which I got to believe is the most all time. Yeah, the Kings did not play their typical shutdown defense in this one, and the Capitals took advantage.
And former King, indeed, Matt Roy, right, getting the goal there, just to add a little insult to injury. And then our final game of the night, Columbus and Montreal. Columbus led in this one for much of the game, 3-1, including what was a defense optional play on the first goal. Zach Werenski just kind of moseying in, and Montreal not really sure who's supposed to be picking him up. And he says, "Sure, okay, I'll take all the space you'll give me in the high slot." And he snipes one in, no problem there, leaving your goaltender out to dry. I do think Montreal defensively has been a lot better as this season has gone on, and I know they're dealing with some injuries at the center position right now. That's not helping either, but that was not the best defense I've seen Montreal play this season. However, Montreal also plays in a way where no lead is safe. 2 third-period goals. Lane Hudson in on both of them, gets the dish on one, scores the other. The Jackets ultimately, though, would get the win in the shootout. Before we get to our Locked On local host, Eddie, this is such an interesting game to me, because these are two teams who I feel like could be competing for one playoff spot, much like they were last year.
Yeah, Montreal's interesting. They're going through it a little bit right now. They're winless in their last 4 games. I know that they maybe feel a little bit better about this one because in the third period they did rally and they were able to tie it up and get a point out of it. And there certainly are some legitimate injury issues going on with them right now. But look, this is a younger team that's going to have to learn how to go through the ups and downs of an NHL season and try and stay the course as best as they can. Don't let a bad week or two, sabotage what you've been doing for most of the year. So ride it out. This is a talented team. I think they'll be fine, but they are going through a little bit of a struggle right now.
Let's give Locked On Columbus Blue Jackets Jay Forster the final word on this game.
As my friend just texted me, the Blue Jackets snatch victory from the jaws of defeat, from the jaws of victory. They blow another lead, but they get the win in the shootout. So, we can be mad, but also happy. 4-3 win for the Blue Jackets. Their third shootout in the past 4 games, I think. 4th post-regulation game in the last 5. They can't keep getting away with this, right? I don't understand how this team plays like they do in the third period. They spend the overtime basically just enduring it to get to the shootout, I think. They get to the shootout, and I believe they're 3-1 in the shootout now this season, which is, again, probably not the most sustainable, but 2 points are 2 points, right? Zach Werenski is 1 point away from 400 in his career. Charlie Coyle, 2 points away from 500. Hoping for a big game tomorrow against Winnipeg. We're going to break down tonight's game on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Blue Jackets.
All right, much appreciated there. Eddie and I are going to empty the chamber. We've got a take or lesson learned from every one of the 12 teams who played tonight. We get into that when we get back here on Locked On NHL Game Night. Now, of course, our show brought to you in part by our friends at FanDuel, and the NBA is back with no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or you want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team is making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving New customers, $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet hits. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, back by popular demand of me. I loved this segment last time we did this, Eddie. We're going to power through. We're going to do one take or lesson learned from each team that played tonight, and we're going to go snake style. We already know the order. Well, we know who the teams we're doing. I haven't revealed the order. I'm going to start with Montreal, and then you're going to go twice. So first, real quick, we're basically going in inverse order of the teams we just discussed. The Montreal Canadiens, I think my big takeaway from them tonight is they have got to find a way to get healthy. They are missing 2 centers down the middle, and one injury is a problem. It starts to have a cumulative effect the worse it gets. Montreal Canadiens have got to get healthy. Eddie, your final thoughts on the Columbus Blue Jackets. What did you learn tonight?
I learned that I'm rooting for Jet Greaves. This guy has come from kind of out of nowhere. He was an undrafted free agent. He's the goalie for Columbus, if you don't know. Played in the ECHL. He's taken the hard road to becoming the number 1 goalie for Columbus. Elvis Merzlikins is making, I think, $5.5 million a year, but he's on the bench. And the guy who's making less than $1 million has started 6 games in a row for the Blue Jackets. So it's a great story. He's getting the job done with his performance. And also a pretty cool thing, he's named after Jet Li, the martial arts movie actor. So Jet Greaves is a guy I'm rooting for. I love his story.
All right, what did we learn about the LA Kings tonight?
Well, I mean, I don't know if I learned anything about it, but a take from the game is just one of the things I love about hockey is the respect that you have. And Andrei Kopitar, who's going to retire after this year, I was very pleasantly surprised to see him announce it before the season because he's a guy who's played on the West Coast. I don't think he's gotten the attention that he has deserved kind of from the sport of hockey, if you will, from the fans mostly, to be honest with you. But just love, he's kind of on this farewell tour. They're giving him the video, tributes on the scoreboard. They did it in DC. And then afterwards, Alexander Ovechkin, as Sidney Crosby did earlier on this road trip, goes over and they do the jersey exchange. So just cool to see him getting his flowers on this. And I think he's the greatest LA King of all time. People might be surprised to hear me say that. But it's very cool to see him getting this kind of farewell tour across the NHL.
West Coast Patrice Bergeron. That's how I have always thought of him.
Good call.
And yeah, should be a Hall of Famer for sure on that first opportunity. Washington Capitals. Here's one thing I learned tonight because I was doing some research on Charlie Lindgren because I really was surprised. The only time I've seen him play a full game this season was that New York Rangers game, and the dude played out of his mind in that game, only to find that his save percentage was way down this season. He was playing really poorly in basically every other game. And I was looking at it, and the issue wasn't really at 5-on-5. The issue was on the power play where he was more than 10 percentage points worse than he was the previous season. So you think early, small sample size, that'll probably normalize, but the Capitals are going to need more from him. Coming into tonight on the power play, he had only stopped 3 out of every 4 shots that he had faced. That is not going to get it done if you're a goalie when on the penalty kill, you are supposed to be your team's best penalty killer. So that's what I learned tonight about the Washington Capitals. They're going to win more games if Charlie Lindgren is getting back into form. Anaheim Ducks, I think I kind of alluded to it earlier, but there's no getting around it that this is a team that even if they don't have their A game, their B game is so full of high skill ability that as long as they're in it, it is not over. The Ducks are one of the most exciting teams in hockey, and they showed it tonight with multiple ways that they played, scored goals. It's one of those games where you kind of throw the analytics out a little bit and just realize because they played the full 60 minutes, they played to the whistle, and they have such an absurd talent level that you listed off earlier for us. The Ducks are probably a team that you'll never be able to count out of almost any game this year. Eddie, Utah and Carolina, all you.
We've talked about the Mammoth in terms of, being a team coming from Arizona. Some of their players are, under the radar. I think we talked about Clayton Keller being one of those guys who's a really good player that a lot of people don't know about, even though he's been in the league for a while. And with all the young influx of talent going on around the league and some players in the spotlight, others aren't, I would say Dylan Gunther may be a guy who's like that amongst younger players, 22 years old, just in his second full season in the NHL. he's a really good young player that maybe is a bit under the radar nationally. Scored his 8th goal in the game earlier tonight. So that's a guy to keep an eye on, a good young player that maybe you don't know too much about. And you said, am I going up with Carolina here as well?
Mm-hmm.
I'm keeping the goalie theme a little bit here with Pyotr Kochetkov. He's hit the ground running since coming back from his injury. He missed the first 11 games of the season with a lower body injury. But since he's come back, he's 4-0. He's got a 1.70 goals against average and a 926 save percentage with a shutout. He's yet to be the guy when the Carolina Hurricanes get to the postseason. So there's still a long way to go. And we know that Carolina's been that team that always gets in the playoffs, always wins in the first round, and then stumbles later on. Maybe he is a guy that can be the difference maker for Carolina this time around.
All right, so I've got the Boston Bruins next, and the thing that I'm still wondering about is I feel like Boston, the top of the lineup is not going to be good enough to compete with the Carolinas of the world, but I think the depth and potentially even the coaching and the goaltending will be enough to keep them in things this season deep into it, as long as they don't suffer any major injuries. Again, Charlie McAvoy out for this one, dealing with some stuff. And so the question I have is, does James Higgins potentially make a difference for Boston between being a playoff team and not being a playoff team? Tough to say. That's their 7th overall pick they took last draft, currently playing out his sophomore year at Boston College. And then the Buffalo Sabres, they continue to be Jekyll and Hyde to me, man. But kudos to them. This is their 2nd game in a row where they actually exerted their will and played the third period the way that they have to play the third period. I was so down on them. I've said it multiple times over. I'm not gonna forget it, because I can't unsee the way they played those first 3 games to start the season. But this now, stringing this together back to back and doing it in the most important moment in the third period, and not just getting fluke goals, but actually running the rate of play, I'm starting to maybe buy, and doing it while ahead, I'm starting to actually buy Buffalo might have a little bit more of a story to tell this season. Eddie, I've got the last 2 Stanley Cup finalists for you back to back, Edmonton and Florida. Take it away.
Well, as someone whose team has lost to the Oilers 4 years in a row in the playoffs, I want to believe that the Oilers are a bad team and they're going to fall apart and it's not going to happen. I still don't believe it. I won't believe it until I see them eliminated from the playoffs. Even with all the issues they've had, they're still currently tied for the final wild card spot in the West. Now, granted, they're tied with like 5 other teams, but they're still right there. If they get a good week running, guess what? They'll be right back where they're supposed to be in a playoff spot. As for the Florida Panthers, I think we all knew Sergei Bobrovsky was a Hall of Famer. He had the Vezinas, now he's got the Cups, and he gets career win number 438 earlier tonight. He's 9th all time, and I wonder, could he join the 500 win club? There's only 3 other goalies in the NHL history that have done it: Brodeur, Waugh, and Marc-Andre Fleury. I think he's 62 wins away. And he's 37. This is the last year of his contract, but I think he's still got some gas in the tank. So Sergei Bobrovsky, I think he could be a part of the 500 win club when it's all said and done.
One quick note on Edmonton, by the way, they were at this exact point last year after 21 games, 22 points. They then reeled off 15 wins in their next 20 games to get themselves securely in the playoff spot at that point. All right, and the Vancouver Canucks, I'm going to keep beating the drum on this. I'm sorry, Canucks fans, cover your ears. It's time to rip the Band-Aid off. They have got to trade Quinn Hughes. The Canucks with Hughes on the ice since November 6th this season. This tweet from Harmon Dial, plus 10, I think, in shot attempts. Okay, Vancouver above water when Quinn Hughes is on the ice for a third of the game. When he's not on the ice, I don't even want to say the number. It's that bad. It's in the triple digits, in the negative. It's bad. It's really bad. Vancouver is 32nd in the NHL right now in high danger chances against at 5-on-5 per 60 minutes. This is not going to work. And they're doing that with Quinn Hughes, one of the best defensemen in hockey. And we know he doesn't want to stick around. It's time to rip the Band-Aid off, Vancouver. If you want complete coverage of your favorite NHL team, there's a Locked On NHL Team podcast and YouTube show for you, because we have one for every NHL team. And this show, Locked On NHL Game Night, is here for you each and every night of the regular season and playoffs, wrapping up the night in the NHL. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this show if you're watching on YouTube. We want to see your thoughts on tonight's games in the comments section. And of course, we want to know what you think of what your favorite team did tonight. Do you think Vancouver needs to trade Quinn Hughes? Do you think Edmonton is the monster from the horror movie and they're still lurking? That will do it, though, for this episode of Locked On NHL Game Night. For Eddie Garcia, I'm Alex Wiederspiel. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching Locked On NHL Game Night, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network around your teams every day.